What's up, in.crwd? Today we have two very special guests with us today from UCF. We have YAF President and Sophomore Business Management Major David Brantz and ACP President and Sophomore Nursing Major Nick Daniels. YAF stands for Young Americans for Freedom, and he's going to tell us today what leadership in his organization looks like on a day-to-day basis. Hi, David. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And being president of YAF here at UCF, day-to-day normally looks like if we're tabling on campus, then I'll go out and be a part of that. I like to be involved in my group, not just run things from behind the scenes. On Wednesdays, we have meetings at 6:30 to 7:30 every Wednesday, sorry. And I run those. We normally go over some slides, talk about some stuff, talk about what's going on in the club. I like to keep my group updated as much as possible. I like to keep everyone involved. And then after that, of course, we'll sometimes go over to the Turning Point room and then everything like that. We become sort of like a friend group. We've become a friend group. So we sometimes will hang out outside of meetings and such. And yeah, genuinely, it's honestly an honor and a privilege to be president of this organization here on campus. It's a lot of fun. We started in the fall of 2025.
2025.
Yeah, okay. So last semester was our first semester being here. Our president and founder of the chapter here on campus was Jake Suggs. He was our first president. He was the leader last semester all the way through. And after the events on September 10th, what happened to Charlie, I realized that I can no longer be quiet about my conservative ideals because I had been literally forever. So that's when I realized, if someone's getting killed for literally having the same ideas as me, it's time to, help out with the movement. So I go to campus with a homemade Charlie Kirk shirt on because I couldn't afford anything. Everything was sold out. And I found Jake Suggs tabling for the 9/11 memorial because, the next day was 9/11. And he was tabling for YAF that day. And I found him and I talked to him and I looked up what YAF was. And I was like, this is a good movement. I can stand for this kind of stuff. I agree with this stuff. So I started going to meetings. I became close with Jake. I still am. We're still buddies. He's over in Tallahassee doing his stuff now. And eventually, Jake started teaching me how to lead the group because he wanted me to be the next president. And when elections came around, everyone else in YAF had decided, David would be a pretty good president or after Jake. So they voted me in, and I've been here ever since.
Oh, nice. Thank you so much for that background story.
Absolutely.
And now ACP stands for the American Communist Party, led by President Nick Daniels. And I understand that it was established the spring of 2026.
Yes, we're still working on RSO status, actually. Sent my application and everything, so we're waiting on it to get approved. Yeah.
And what does leadership in your organization look like on a daily basis?
Well, because we're working on founding it, I would say I'm in the planning stage for the club. So it's reaching out, making alliances, knowing who we could work with, getting a base of support, who's going to be the officers. I've already found my officers as well, and jumping through the hoops when it comes to OSI to register on RSO. It's a very difficult, annoying process, but I think we got it. Other than that, I participate in the American Communist Party for the state of Florida. We have a meeting every Tuesday, and there's always something going on. Something being planned. There's always events we're doing. Pretty much about once every 2 weeks at this point we're doing some sort of event, but we're getting to the point where we're doing weekly events. And as for the UCF club, we're still doing events, even though we don't have RSO status yet, because we're working with other clubs who have been very hospitable to us, such as YAF and such as PPE, which gives us the ability to do things like table and do joint events while we get our footing. We've already planned out our events with my vice president. And I'm pretty optimistic with how things are going to go.
And were you the first person to want to bring an ACP to campus, this organization?
Yes, I would say so. We've had very good success, and we've grown pretty rapidly, I would say, for such a new club.
And what experiences or influences has shaped your political beliefs towards a part of affiliated with the American Communist Party?
Yeah, well, so my family is Russian, I'm a Moldovan citizen, and even though I was raised in America, it was a very interesting experience to hear all of these extremely negative things about communism. But my family was quite fond of it. Even the parts of my family that are not communist officially, they have very balanced views on what life was like in the USSR, and they're all pretty much in agreement that once it collapsed and became capitalist, things got a lot worse. And that definitely influenced my political journey quite a bit to hear the people who lived there having very different narratives than what I heard in the common political sphere in America. Because in America, opinions are still heavily influenced by McCarthyism and the Cold War, and communism here is associated with cartoonishly evil or terrible things. When people who lived there would say very different things to me, and I think that opened my mind and made me very curious. And I went down the rabbit hole and came out the other side of communism.
And have you been to Russia, like lately, or like spoken with anybody there on how they feel about communism at all?
Yeah, so I'm a Moldovan citizen. I go there about once a year. I actually came back from Russia and Belarus and a few other ex-communist countries earlier this year. Sorry, last summer actually. Things have moved pretty fast, but yeah, I go there about once a year to Eastern Europe. I'm planning on going back actually in the fall of this year, and I love talking to people about politics, especially the people who lived there. And you definitely get balanced perspectives. That greatly depends on the country. In Russia, people are very fond of it. In Belarus, people are very fond of it. Needless to say, in Poland, they're not very fond of communism, so it really just depends on what country you're talking about.
Okay. And David, what issues are currently most important to your members in the YAF organization?
Right. So we're not necessarily a Republican Party organization. We're a conservative organization. So we still critique both sides of the aisle there. So everything that like what most people would think is our biggest issue right now, they would think like would align with the Republican Party. But really, right now, we're in a pretty sizable partnership with Students for Life, run by Jasmine. She's also a part of YAF. So one of our biggest concerns at the moment right now are pro-life tabling events, pro-life activism events. Honestly, within the conservative movement, it's being pro-life is one of our biggest things right now. Because people want to talk about genocides that are happening all over the world, but no one talks about the 72 million a year. So that is one of the conservatives' top motives right now, is to talk about, deal with that kind of stuff. So I'd say that's probably one of our biggest motives and concerns right now inside YAF, the conservative movement.
Okay. And how does your organization approach conversations with people who strongly disagree what your beliefs are in?
Right, of course. So obviously we're very open to discussion. We try to table twice a week. If people are freely allowed to come up to our table and have a conversation with us, we normally have 5 to 7 good, solid conversations every time we table with people who genuinely disagree with us. We've only had a couple issues on campus. We had someone come up and kick our table, and the table like moved and hit one of our people. We've had one of our members get pushed when they were trying to pick a fight. Not our member, the other guy was trying to pick a fight. So we get yelled at, screamed at, called stuff. That's fine. Our comment sections are normally filled with insults. I only worry about them if they're threats. I've gone to the police department here about those before. But yeah, so we, of course, after all that, we're still open and ready to talk about anything. Because we all believe at YAF that if both sides stop talking, bad stuff starts to happen. So even if it's sometimes uncomfortable to talk to someone that you disagree with, people have to understand that needs to happen to prevent bad stuff from happening. Because if you listen, by the way, this goes for both sides. If you only listen to one-sided news, they're going to tell you stuff about the other people that might not be true. I don't believe that all leftists are crazy and heartless people. I don't believe that. I have plenty of liberal friends who are great people. We just don't agree on everything, and that's okay. So we're always very open to discussion. We love it. I'm a big fan of Charlie Kirk. That's everything. Literally, his entire job was around giving a microphone to people and talking to them about the disagreements. So I think that really important to carry that on.
And Nick, have you had any tabling events here at UCF, even though you may not be fully affiliated with UCF yet?
Yeah, we table about once a week. We've had similar experiences to YAF, actually, with even very similar and in many cases the same people coming up to us and being very belligerent. We've had a lot of good conversations with people who both disagree with us and a lot of people who do agree with us. And of course, that's a spectrum, not necessarily all on one side or all on the other side. People have found us to be very amicable and likable, and we found that especially conservatives and moderates are very open-minded to what we have to say. I mean, we are very, how do I put this? We are very flashy. We have a nice table cover and a big flag. We have a hammer and sickle on it, and we call ourselves communists. We're the only organization on campus that does that, and so I think we get a lot of attention that way. Our tables so far have been pretty packed. I would probably say maybe around 20 people every time we go tabling we'll talk to. It's been overwhelming for some of the people I've been tabling with at the beginning, especially because they have to have conversations with new people all the time, and we've had cases where there's lines to talk to us, but it's definitely a very good thing. We've actually tabled with YAF before, especially for our debate, and that went pretty well. There's one man who shall not be named who has attacked us rhetorically and YAF, and he likes coming to our table. Yeah, he knows. And he likes coming to our table and being annoying and arguing with a lot of people who want to talk to us. But overall, people have been very open-minded, and I commend them for that, and I think we've won a lot of people over.
And have you seen a lot of students that maybe are unsure about what the American Communist Party is, or want some more information about it? How do you go about talking to those?
Yeah, so we get a lot of the same questions as far as what we believe in, and people hearing things that they want to verify by talking to us. How do we handle that? I mean, I would say we just tell them our perspective. We talk about what the organization is, what we do, what we want to do more of. And, yeah. I'm sure.
Okay. And David, what misconceptions do people often have about, your organization specifically, do you think? And do you think that any of the criticism by these opponents are actually fair? That you can, I understand why these people are that way.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest misconceptions, going back to what I said earlier, if you only listen to one-sided news, they're gonna tell you things about the other side, and you sometimes won't be able to get to see that for yourself. So you'll just go your entire life thinking that. We get called fascists a lot, which if we're over here offering you a place, a place to talk to us about your ideas, and us share ours with yours, that's the most non-fascist thing that you could possibly do, because the definition of fascist, that's a government, that's a state that runs everything. The ideas of the people. So you're not allowed to have a different idea than the government, right? That is bad. All of us agree that's bad. No conservative wants that. We want public discourse. We want public conversation. It's good. So we get called that a lot, but that is because the one-sided news that everyone else watches calls us that. They call us fascists, they call us Nazis. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the Nazi one. I'm starting to get pretty tired of that one. That that one's starting to. It's not getting on my nerves or anything, but it's starting to get just a little bit annoying. Because I'm very like I trust me. I've done my research on World War II. We are nothing like those people. So, that's a misconception. But again, that's news fed. That's not really because if you do talk to us and have a genuine conversation with us and you still leave thinking that we're fascists and Nazis, then you either don't know the definition of those words or you are so closed-minded at that point that there's no other perspective or point of view that you are interested in looking into. And that's pretty sad. But I think I'd say that those are really the only misconceptions that we have. I guess a lot of confusion that people do have is that you don't have to agree with everything that our organization stands for to be a part of it.
Okay.
That's another thing. I have 2 or 3 people in YAF right now who definitely don't agree with everything that YAF is doing, but they agree with enough to be like, this is still a good movement,
Right.
but we can still the things that they don't agree with, I talk to them almost daily about. I'm very close to one of them getting fully very close to it. He's just struggling on a couple more things, and then after I'm done with it, I think it's gonna take 2 or 3 more talks before I fully get him. But yeah,
And when you say that, is it your all's plan to kind of like get these students and transform them, like their ideas about to conservative values, or
right.
To educate them? What is your whole plan behind all that?
Oh, that's good. So I think that the main goal behind all of that is us presenting our ideals as best we can to try and persuade them. Because everything that YAF stands for right now, I really agree with, and I think that it is the truth. So I'm going to express that the best way I can through public conversation with them, because that is the best way to do it, in my opinion. No, it's not really to I don't want to sit there and make people go through another class and where I just educate them on stuff. I want people to have their own perspectives and point of views. But I also want them to hear my side just as much as they want me to hear their side. And then we're able to go from there. So I'd say that's what we do.
Hey, and Nick, I know that it must take a lot of guts and bravery to just start your own club, especially a political organization on campus in this 21st century era, and you being affiliated with just within your community, but with the American Communist Party and wanting to bring it to the university level. What misconceptions do you want to get rid of about communism that bringing it here to UCF that you can see that will make a big impact towards people who have the same ideological beliefs?
Yeah, so we do have a very common misconceptions that we see a lot of, especially when we're tabling. People have a lot of ideas about what communism is. Everyone gets paid the same, that we're against freedom of speech, that we hate businesses or we hate religion. And I find that when people talk to us, they see that in many cases actually agree with us, almost in a way that scares some of the more conservative people we're talking to about how much we do agree. And that makes them go, wait a minute, maybe these guys aren't as bad as I thought they were. And in many cases, we're even getting some people to get more on board with us. I would say the biggest misconception that we deal with the most is certainly one of religion. I mean, the majority of the leadership of the party are religious in some way. Most are Christian. Our party leader is Muslim. Actually, the vice president of the club right now is a Muslim guy as well. So I would probably say the biggest misconception we have is that we hate religion or we hate God. I would actually say the opposite. The majority of our organization, both in rank of file, but especially the leadership, is religious in some capacity. Another thing is the idea that everyone gets paid the same, that we want total equality of outcome. That's not the case. We want equality of opportunity for everybody, for all of the people who work where they all have the ability to raise themselves and their community up, as opposed to everyone just getting ration cards where they all get the same exact stuff no matter what they're doing. So I would say those are probably the biggest misconceptions we have to deal with. As far as starting a club, I mean, It hasn't been too difficult so far, but it's been a lot of work, especially just making connections with other organizations. I've reached out to TPUSA with YAF, and it's very interesting meeting all these new people who are very friendly and have been very amicable to us as well.
It's awesome. And just to give a little bit of a backstory about what happened with your all's famous political debate on campus, on March 5th, 2026, a political debate forum brought together student political organizations to discuss several pressing international issues, including Iran's nuclear program, Israel's ongoing conflict and peace efforts with Palestine, international sanctions on North Korea, China's expanding global influence, and Taiwan's political status, and the global economic implications of Venezuela's oil industry. Many of these topics continue to shape global diplomacy and geopolitical stability today. And from your perspective as leaders of your organizations, how do you believe the debate forum went in terms of representing your political viewpoints and engaging with opposing perspectives? We'll start with David.
Okay, thank you. I'd say that it was ACP's first time debating on this level. It was our first time doing a debate on this level. It was PPE's first time hosting a debate on this level. And I think that with all of it being our first time, it could have been a lot worse. There are obviously things we can improve on, both sides. There are technically all three sides. There are things that we did pretty good as well. And I think it's good to take those, to learn from them, and then to get it right the next time that we decide to do something like this. So again, I think it went well. Like both parties got good publicity from it, and we gained some new members out of it. He might add on that when he goes as answering this question. But yeah, I think that it went well. Overall, I think that it went well. And I'm happy that we got to do it with ACP because it was a lot of fun, and it had its moments. But overall, it was pretty good.
And what about you, Nick? What's your perspective?
Yeah, so to back up what he was saying, to my understanding, this is an unprecedented kind of event at UCF, at least, where you have two political opposing organizations coming together and working together to have a joint event. It was very big, very ambitious, and we made a lot of mistakes, but we also made a lot of wins as well. I would say, yeah, we both got good publicity. We got a lot of people in the door. I want to say about 150.
Just under, yeah.
In total, somewhere around there in the audience. We had a lot of press, which we were not expecting, but we were happy to have received to give us attention and time of day. And it gave us a lot of exposure. I think a lot of people were interested in the spectacle of seeing a conservative organization and a communist organization arguing about foreign policy, especially with what's happening recently.
Right.
Very topical conversation, to say the least, with Iran being bombed the week of the debate. That was not planned. That just happened to, I just happened to be there. We're planning the week event 2 to 3 weeks in advance, and it happened at that time. Venezuela as well. All these things are present in the mind of not just the UCF student body, but all of Americans. And I think we had the luck, if you want to put it that way, of having an event about these topics during this time to get a bit more attention. And definitely, I do think there are things that could have been done better. And we're working on, we actually have pretty much agreed on what those things are. And we're toying with the idea of running it again, probably on a different topic, but making it a lot better, making it a lot more entertaining, making it a lot more civil and engaging for the audience as well. And it was the first time for PPE moderating as well. So PPE is politics, philosophy, and economics third-party club, which is neutral. Its whole point is hosting different perspectives, and they're interested in hosting more events like this, and I think they learned a lot from that event as well. And so I'm at least me personally, I'm very optimistic with where this is going to go, and to develop our relationship with YAF more and other organizations. And I definitely want to see more engagement, not just with ACP and other political organizations, but all political organizations on campus coming together. I don't think the UCF student body should be fighting each other. I don't think we should be being belligerent with one another. I think more often than not, when you talk to people on the opposing side, people actually agree on a lot of things. And we should, at the very least, figure out what those things are and work together on those things. Because I think everyone wants a better life for their community, their children, and themselves at the end of the day. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Thank you, Nick. That was beautifully said.
I 100% agree with that, actually.
And how would you describe your organization's vision for the future of the United States? David.
Can you repeat that?
Yes. How would you describe your organization's vision for the future of the United States?
Oh, easy. So conservative, the definition of conservative, right? So I want, smaller government. I don't want it to control everything. I want free market. I want open trade. I want people being able to start their own business, because a lot of people come here for a better life. I wanted to make it as easy as possible for them to achieve that better life, the American dream. Because that is, a couple years ago, that was slowly starting to slip away from us. It was becoming harder and harder and harder. And I think that we're on a better track now, but it's a very slow track. But we're still heading in that direction. I like it. I want to end the genocide on children, unborn babies. I want to give everyone a chance of life in America. And I want the founding fathers' vision. I want that to happen and come true, and I want it to stay that way. So that's what our organization is helping to work towards for the future of America.
And would you be willing to compromise with any opposing political beliefs, from YAF that maybe deal with on a daily basis? And if so, what does compromise to look like to you? Those
absolutely.
Political parties.
So again, our country is a two-party system. They have to compromise on a lot of things. It should be no different for really anything else with two opposing sides. Every time I talk to Nick, I just realize, man, this guy's more and more. It's like, yeah, this guy's chill. He's like absolutely I'm friends with someone named Kyle Troy. So is he. I met him through Kyle Troy. I'm considering Nick a friend now, and we disagree on so much that we are presidents of two different political parties. But we're able to put that aside and talk about stuff, work on stuff together. We worked on the debate together. So compromising, no matter what part of leadership you're in, you're always going to have to compromise with something. Even with members in my own group, we've had disagreements on what we should do with the club because I care about what the people in YAF want YAF to look like at UCF. So every meeting I let them ask questions. We talk about it. There has been some pretty good ideas set in that I didn't really think would work out, but I did it anyways. I took the chance because I want to support the people in YAF. And you know what? They ended up working. So that's great. So there is ways to find middle ground, work on it together, and make sure that both sides are happy. Of course, that's not always going to happen. Like we see today, a lot of stuff that Congress has been voting on recently. They're not making one side very happy, but the other side very happy. But they have ways of compromising to make somewhat middle ground happen. So I think that's absolutely possible for chapters of any political organization at UCF. Because we already saw with ACP and YAF, two very opposing ideologies, but we found middle ground and we were able to have a debate on it, and that's great. Like that's I feel like that should be the standard for political conversation, because I think it's the best way. Yeah.
And Nick, how would you describe your organization's vision for the?
Well, I could talk about that all day, but I suppose I'll try to keep it short. What we're seeing in America today is that people, especially young people, are being crushed by high costs for living and low wages. I think the American dream has died, and we definitely want to bring that back. I want to have an America where your average 20-year-old, your 25-year-old could afford a house, afford a family, preferably on one income, raise a family, and give the children that they have a good life, a good education, and a good future, while guaranteeing themselves a happy and healthy retirement as well. I think that where America is going right now, that's dying, and the opportunity for that is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I think a big reason for that is that the market we have is controlled by a handful of very large, but a small number of extremely large corporations that do not have the interests of the American people at the forefront. More often than not, they're willing to sacrifice the livelihoods of the American people for their own profits. I think we should have an America where there's much more small businesses. There's much more room for your average mom and pop shop to actually be able to influence their communities in a better way. But I also think that the larger corporations we have should be more tightly regulated at the very least, but in many cases nationalized, in the case of the defense industry, in the case of the banking industry, especially. I also want, not just me, ACP in general, we want to stop funding the military so much and put that towards things that help the American people. Healthcare, education, childcare. We shouldn't be bombing other countries. We shouldn't be invading other countries, as we're saying right now. That, of course, makes the lives of the people in these countries worse, but it also does not help the American people at all. I believe in Americans first, and I believe that we should be keeping out tax dollars to help Americans instead of bombing and invading other countries in the rest of the world. As far as what that looks like materially, we're still getting down to brass tacks on how we're going to achieve that, but I definitely do think that we need to solve the affordability crisis that young people are facing and make it far, far easier for the American people to have a good life materially and spiritually.
Okay. And what values do you think most Americans share regardless of ideology?
Well, they all want what's best for their community. They all support family, even progressives, but especially conservatives. And I think we could all agree, conservatives and progressives alike, that we do not want to be involved in the things we're involved in. Our military spending is far too high. We shouldn't be doing the things we're doing to the people of other countries as well. And we should be keeping our tax dollars here for the American people. I also think, too, and I'm seeing a very large trend among both sides, especially among young people, of what I would describe as economic leftism. You're seeing that even with James Fishback, a very big Republican candidate who has taken large swaths of Gen Z. He's very popular at UCF. He's a conservative. He's running on the Republican Party. And yet he himself understands and is in full agreement with how affordability is a very big issue we're having. He's even supporting restricting corporations, taxing OnlyFans as a good example. I think that's a good start, but the ACP definitely supports going farther than that. I think we're seeing a lot of what I could only describe as socially harmful businesses, such as the porn industry, such as the sex industry, that has no right to exist in the American context, but really in any context.
And if listeners remember one idea from your political organization, what would you want it to be?
Affordability for all and a good life for the American people.
Okay. And David, what values do you think most Americans share, regardless of ideology?
I'd probably have to double down on the first part that Nick said. Excuse me. Which was the what was the first thing?
Affordability.
Yeah. No. We want what's best for our communities.
Right.
We want to keep those values and that culture alive. That's obviously important. I hate it when people say Americans don't have any culture. Like, dude, you're speaking English right now in America. What do you mean we don't have culture? So I think that keeping that alive is good and strong. Keeping the American dream alive is another thing that's important, because everyone really has different definitions for that, but in the majority of it, I'm like 99% of those definitions are genuinely good things and things that we want to happen. So I think it's very important to keep that going. And I'd say keeping the the traditional family, the nuclear family, that's something that's very important to me. That's how we were able to be such a successful society. One of the bigger reasons why we were able to become such a successful country and the global superpower that we are today. So I think that those three things are major. And if you're going to get anything out of YAF, I would really hope it's those three things. See, look at that. We already found common ground with the first one. Look at that.
I love to hear it.
You love to hear it. We love to see it. So I think, those are definitely the most important things. Of course, affordability, everyone wants that. There are ways. I feel like there are definitely ways that we can start helping the American people with affordability. I also agree with that not everyone puts the American people first. We even saw that during the State of the Union. Trump asked, do you put illegal aliens or American citizens first? And half the room, which we all know what half that was, didn't stand. So clearly, again, middle ground, there are groups of people leading this country who do not care about American citizens. That is a problem. My belief with YAF is that I feel like we can fix those problems without becoming communist through several different ways. Which, by the way, that might be a really good debate idea. I feel like that would really hammer it home with both of our clubs. So yeah. I think that's what we believe in. If you're going to get anything out of YAF, I hope it's that. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess you kind of just answered that question. So if listeners remember one idea from your organization, what would you want it to be? Any last thoughts?
I'd say those 3 or 4 things that I said, just to double down on it again. Because, that's part of the values that YAF has. And we are able to talk about them any day of the week. We are able to, if you go on our website, the headquarters website, like the whole thing, why we started and why we still do what we do, it's all on there. It's all written down. And it's a good read. If you have the time and you're listening to this and you want to go read something, I'd say go read that. It's a pretty fun article to read.
And last few things, Nick, is there anything coming up for the ACP? Any events that you have going on that the audience should know about so that they can give you all a look, join, maybe get some more insight about what your club entails?
Yeah, so we have an Instagram and a Discord for the club. Coming up, we have a political violence panel on the first week of April. I forgot the exact day. It's in my calendar. YAF is participating with that as well, I believe.
Yeah, that's with Michael, right?
Yes.
Yeah, will be.
And the first week back from spring break, we are looking into having a event as well, a presentation. We're also toying with the idea of doing another debate with YAF before the semester ends. We're trying to figure out more specifically when that would be. And we are working with a local union organization to try to plan out an event with them at UCF. Okay,
and where can viewers find your Instagram or any platforms? What is the username? Anything like that you would like to share?
Yeah, it is acp.ucf.
Okay, acp.ucf. Pretty simple for all you Knights out there. And David, is there any events or cool club activities that you have for YAF coming up soon?
Yeah, absolutely. We just, about 2 weeks ago, we got our bank account open. Hooray. Hoorah. And so we're trying to get some fundraising to bring a speaker in. We're thinking about Nick Fredes, not Fuentes. Fredes. A lot of people get those mixed up. We're looking to get Nick Fredes in, maybe Tim Burchett, possibly Daniel DiMartino again. Michael Knowles was the goal, but we're not going to be able to make enough money in time for this semester, so he'll have to wait. Ben Shapiro's out of the question for the same reasons. There was one more. Anyways, that's not important. So, so we're trying to bring a speaker in before this semester ends. Those are the list of people that are on the to go list. After that, like Nick said, we're toying around with maybe having one more debate. It'll definitely be in a different format before, and we want to plan it out better so that the debaters have better chemistry next time. That was one of the things we talked about, but also so that we can plan ahead for advertising, and we're not smushing all the advertising in 2 days before. Where I forget, I skim over the rules, and I forget that we're not allowed to hang posters in certain areas, and I do it anyways on accident. Sorry about that, by the way, student admin. That was an accident. I did not know. So yeah, other than that, we're just keeping up with the meetings. Our Instagram, by the way, is UCF_YAF. Go follow us. We're pretty cool Instagram.
Okay, so now it is time for any closing remarks from the YAF president and ACP president, and we're going to go ahead and start with Nick Daniels.
Right, yeah, I just want to shout out David here and YAF. They've been very good to work with. They've been very friendly. They've defended us in the Instagram comments because the Instagram comments for our event was a shit show. Can I curse?
Yes, of course
Okay.
you can. Say it with your chest.
Sure,
Freedom of speech, bro.
I don't know
Yes.
if this is PG-13 or what. Yeah, but it was really funny to see the ACP and the YAF people defending each other against people being belligerent on both sides. And I got to give great thanks to David, especially. He tied my tie at the beginning of the debate because I have not been taught how to do that yet. I got to put it on my bucket list on how to figure that out. But thanks for him, and we have been pretty good friends at this point, I would say. All in all, this was actually a pretty fun experience to plan out and start as far as the debate goes, and we definitely want to do more things like that more often. I think it's a great show to have opposing sides genuinely be friends with each other as well, and I've met a lot of the YAF people. They've been very respectable and very friendly and great guys.
I'm glad to hear that. And David, closing remarks.
Yeah, absolutely. You could tell that I really think highly of Nick because when I was tying his tie, I gave him a double Windsor knot, which is that's the best knot. So yeah, but yeah, so ACP has been very easy to work with, very easy to schedule with. I appreciate them for being very outgoing about it. It was a good opportunity for both of our clubs. We were actually talking about this yesterday. So all credit of this goes to Nick. We just didn't get a chance to say it during the earlier parts of the podcast. Is that something that we do want to do for the next one? Is instead of going back and forth the whole time about I don't believe your source or they don't believe our source, right? That doesn't matter. We both agreed that it's probably important for us to just do our sources and then talk about what our views are, because we're not really there to change each other's minds. We're there to persuade the audience or to help the person who's sitting on the fence, who can't really decide. That will, kind of force them to go home, look up both sources,
and also
do their own research.
Just to, pause on a little bit on that. How would you feel about having maybe an actual fact checker while, this debate is happening, or maybe some sort of other moderator that will sit on the, sidelines, right, hearing both sides. And if something seems kind of out of whack,
So we've also talked about that, but see, the problem with that is that one side genuinely believes their source and the other side genuinely believes their source.
Correct.
So having a fact checker would be difficult because you also have to find someone who's so neutral.
Correct.
And who literally does not care about any of that, which is almost impossible to find, especially in college. So we both talked about it. As good as it sounds, it's one of those things that I don't think is necessarily possible. I think that what Nick was saying yesterday, though, where we need to be focusing more on the audience
right,
for their entertainment, for their persuasion. I think that's the best way to go about it. That would save time in the debate so we can discuss more. And that would achieve what we're really going for here, which is persuading the people and getting people to do their own research. Instead of having a fact checker, we want the audience to go fact check everything that's being said. We want them to go research it. We want them to care more about it. We want them to be a part of our clubs. So that is really the main thing why we're doing this. And then just to backtrack to final remarks after, of course, all the credit for that goes to Nick. He was saying it yesterday. I believed it and I was thinking it too, but I didn't put in the words like he did. So still all credit to him for saying that yesterday. But again, ACP, really easy to work with, really good people. Nick and we've become, friends over this period of time. And I do consider him a friend. And I think that that's important for people to know, because while our clubs are polar opposites of what we go off of, we are still able to be friends. And I think for people to notice that and for people to see that is super important, because there are plenty of people who make politics their entire life, which, by the way, is miserable. Go touch grass. Please go touch grass. All right. Politics are important, but if it's your entire life and you literally cannot do anything else, you need help. In my opinion, you might need some help.
What is your take on that, Nick, really quick?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to add on to that. Yeah, I actually completely agree. I mean, I'm the president of a political club. I'm a member of a national political party. Half of my friends, I don't talk about politics with them. I try to keep those lives separate and having a more fulfilling life, because I definitely do agree, if your entire existence is based around politics, not very healthy. I mean, politics is important. I'm sure we could all agree. But people get obsessed with this stuff. And while it is important, it's counterproductive to act that way, and especially to be belligerent with other people on the other end of the aisle. I did also want to talk about the fact checker, because it's been raised with us. May I talk about that?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah. I think on paper that's a good idea, but we're seeing now politically that sources say different things. And not only is bias for the fact checker a big issue, but we're at the point now politically where you have sources that completely contradict each other. And a big part of that is doing your own research on your own time and trying to check religiously all the sources you see about things. Because it sucks to say, but information, I think, is being controlled and narratives are being pushed against conservatives, against communists, against anyone you can name. And it sucks, but it's difficult to implement something like that. I will say, though, I also do think the point of the debate is not just to convince the audience, but to have people at least know what people believe and hear what they say. I mean, with these sort of joint events, you have communists hearing out conservatives and knowing what their positions are on things, and conservatives hearing out communists and knowing what their positions are on things. And I think in many cases, that will win people over on both sides, but it'll also make them much more balanced and nuanced with understanding what people who they ostensibly disagree with believe. I saw this a lot with YAF and ACP. We actually agree on a lot of things too. Definitely on economics we disagree, but certainly. But on many things we're actually in agreement with, and we would have never known that if we didn't interact with one another. So just normalizing the interaction between opposing political groups, I think, does a lot of good.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, having an event like this and having a relationship like you all do encourages others to do the same. So it's really amazing that you guys are able to develop, a friendship and be able to kind of form an alliance that way too.
Yeah, for the people.
For the People Alliance, yes, exactly.
I was wondering if I could add in a sort of a question, because I'm curious to ask this for Nick, and I also think it's important for everyone who listens. I'll even answer it to give an example. What exactly news source do you guys, like the main one that you read or listen to pull information from? Because for me personally, I'm a big fan and a subscriber actually of the Daily Wire. Because I can't remember who, and I'm sorry about that, but it's one of the main people on there. They got something wrong. They realized that they were fact checked and they were wrong, and they immediately came out and apologized and said, "This is actually what happened. My bad. I'll be better at fact checking." And then they, moved on, which you never see from
They're being transparent, correct.
Main news sources anymore. So I can believe what the Daily Wire says, and I can respect that they did that, because we don't see that anymore. So like me personally, I pull most of my news from the Daily Wire. Okay. Of course, I go through other sources, and especially sources that disagree with me, because I want to know what the people who I'm having debates with are reading. So I pull from both, but to get my conservative news, I mainly pull from the Daily Wire. So that's the main one that I use. I'm curious which one you guys use, because there were some sightings during the debate where I'd never heard of that before. So I'm genuinely curious, like what news sources you guys pull from.
So, at least for me personally, I try to get a lot of different alternative news sources. In general, if everyone's reporting on the same thing and all sides agree on the specifics of certain things, I will go, that's probably correct. I don't really follow one specific news source. I think that leaves you open to being manipulated. I kind of just try to hear out multiple different news sources and see what they're all saying that's in common, and I try to check everything that I see. I'll read I'll read conservative articles, I'll read progressive articles, communist articles, but everyone lies, and a lot of people are just misinformed or they hear the wrong things. So I try my best to check everything against each other, checking sources against each other. I am a big fan of Legitimate Targets with Jackson Hinkle. He's one of our party leaders who has a news channel, though, which I'm a big fan of. I think it's very entertaining. I could give that as a...
Okay. No, I completely respect that. Good. Oh.
Any other remarks?
Yeah, just a final thing. There's a question on compromise. I don't think I was asked that. And I did just want to share my thoughts on that. The ACP is more than willing to work with alternative political organizations. Our party leader himself actually wants to work with libertarians and conservatives to achieve our common goals, which we do actually have a lot of in common. So, the ACP is more than happy and willing to work with anyone who's willing to be civil with us, even those who disagree with us pretty heavily. And I suppose I'll end off with that.
Okay.
I just wanted to end with thank you very much for having us on this. And I wanted to thank Nick for, again, working with us during all of this. And I look forward to working together to have another event like that in the future. And I think that's about it from me.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much, in.crwd, and thank you so much to my amazing interviewees, UCF students David Brown and Nick Daniels. You all know where to follow them at, where to like their pages at. Stay prayed up. Thank you, in.crwd.